Hi and welcome back to our kitchen. I took a little break for a while. October's been a big month for us. We celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary and we went to Atlantic City for a little bit because we're close. And this is the time of the year when trick-or-treaters come out and it gets all cold. And now, because of the safety measures, trick-or-treating is not like door-to-door anymore. It's, like the churches have their functions, and then they have trunk or treat where people have their trunks of their car around and the kids go around that, and it keeps it pretty safe for the kiddies. Okay, another thing is, I can't traipse around with my grandkids like I did my kids. So I get to stay home in a warm house and make them something warm to eat when they're done trick-or-treating. Today I'm going to show you how to do Mexican meatball soup. And this is a very easy recipe. Just because it has Mexican in the name doesn't mean it's spicy, because we got to keep it non-spicy for the children. But the whole idea behind the meatball soup is kids like meatballs. Just basic fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a meatball soup that you can make very easily in your own kitchen. I'm going to get started on the meatballs. I have a pound of ground beef here. And what I'm going to do is make a flavor bomb for the soup. What happens is you put the spices and the flavoring into the meatballs, and then when they cook, they release the flavoring into the soup. The soup won't have much spices. It will have vegetables because this is a vegetable-based soup. So let's get started. I have my food processor here. If you don't have one and all you have is one of those choppers or something like that, that's fine. Other people just use knives. But I feel that this gets everything, the vegetables, finer to put in the meatballs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, it's about half of a small onion. And I can put 4 cloves of garlic in here because we like garlic. And if you don't have garlic, like I do, the jarred stuff in the refrigerator is just fine. And then I'm going to add some cilantro. This is how I store my cilantro. I get it in the little bundles and I wrap it in paper towels. I don't wash it, I don't rinse it, I don't put water on these leaves. So I'm just going to grab some off the top. We don't need much to put into the meatballs because we're not going to overcrowd them with vegetables so they won't stick together. And I'm going to put this to the side because we're going to add some later on to the soup. I also have some spices, but I'll put that into the meat. I'm going to chop this up finely, and this is going to go into our meatballs. And it gives it a fresh flavor, and it gives it some moisture so it doesn't dry out too much. So I'm going to, please forgive the sound. And I'm going to put this into the meatball mixture. Let me find a spatula. Here's one. And the vegetables, like I say, add moisture to the meat. And it's going to leak the flavoring into the soup when we make the soup. Just put it in there. Now, I didn't measure too much as far as the cilantro. Most of the recipes call for a half a cup. Well, I'm not going to measure half a cup unless I chop it up beforehand. So I just added a little handful. Put that to the side. Here I have an egg. You're supposed to beat the egg first, but I'm not going to. And I also have 1/4 cup of rice. Now this is a bone of contention for me because sometimes I don't like rice in my meatballs. So I'm just going to I'll add the whole 1/4 cup. Now this is uncooked rice. It will cook in the soup. And then I have a teaspoon of salt. No, 1/2 teaspoon of salt because we're watching our salt. Teaspoon of pepper because we love pepper. Teaspoon of oregano. And a teaspoon of taco seasoning. Now my taco seasoning is mild. So like I say, it's not going to be spicy for the kids. I've got a 1/2 teaspoon of coriander. No, cumin, and a 1/2 teaspoon of, or no, 1/4 teaspoon of coriander. That's my favorite combination for Mexican foods. I'm going to put gloves on. I bought these at the drugstore. They're non-powdered, and I just don't like mixing meat with my hands, especially with the egg in there. And so I'm going to use gloves and mix it all together. I squish it with my hands to get all that rice in there, and the seasonings and the egg. Mix it all together, work it all in. This is a food of love. Take your time. It doesn't have to be rushed. Although sometimes in your family it may have to be. But if you don't have food allergies, and you have the privilege of buying frozen meatballs already done in your freezer section, by all means. You don't need to make your own meatballs. But with people with food allergies, they have to watch what goes into their food. So you would use the already frozen. Most of the time they're already cooked. And you would just plop those into your soup. I'm going to use a small cookie scoop. I like my meatballs small. And I like them to be pushed together and rolled around. And I'm going to start putting these on a cookie sheet because that's the only thing I have big enough to put them on. And I'll be back. Okay, the last time I saw you I started making meatballs. Here they are. I like to let them sit for a little bit. That way the rice starts giving out their starches and makes them hold together a little bit better. Okay, like I said, this is an easy recipe. I'm going to turn my burner on to about a 9. We're not going to fry any vegetables like we usually do. We're just going to dump them in, which is the beauty of this recipe. Okay, first of all, I've got 4 cups of chicken broth. And then I have 1 can of crushed tomatoes that I have to open. Sorry about that, I should have had them opened already. But anyway, tomatoes is a thing of your choice. You can use diced tomatoes. You can use whole tomatoes that you break apart. I'm using crushed, and I'm using a big can of them. That's because that's all I had for right now. I'm going to put in 2 stalks of celery, some little small carrots that I've chopped up. I had 1 poblano pepper that is very optional. It was on my counter, so I needed to use it up. And here I have Little bit more of the cilantro, the cumin and coriander, which is half of what I used in the beginning, and a teaspoon of taco seasoning. And there's some garlic powder and onion powder in there. I'll leave the recipe down below in the description area. And then I'm going to save the zucchini to the end because it cooks faster than any of it. And I'm going to also put in the potatoes right now. I'm going to actually dump that liquid right there in that was soaking the potatoes. And stir that together. Now if you notice, it makes a nice tomato color. Once it comes to a boil, that's when we're going to put our meatballs in. So I'll be right back. Okay, I brought it up to a boil, and then I brought it back down. We don't want it at a hard boil when we put the meatballs in there, because the boil will break it apart. So I'm going to go ahead and give them one more spin in my hand. And you know what? It's easier if you use a spoon just to drop them down in there, because you don't want to splatter it on your hand. This way you know the boil won't break it apart. And what we're going to do next is let them cook for about 10 minutes. That way we know that the meatballs are starting to cook, and when we add our zucchini to it, they won't break apart. So do whichever way you feel safer to put these in here. It will fill your pot up more, as you can see. You don't need a lot of liquid to start out with, because these will bring up the level in your pan of your liquid. Doop, doop. Okay. I'm going to put the lid on here and simmer for 10 minutes. We'll be right back. Okay, it's been boiling for a while. The meatballs are floating up to the top. And now we want to put in our zucchini. Now this is totally optional. If you don't like it, your kids don't like it, don't put it in. Make this soup the way you would like a vegetable tomato soup with meatballs in it. Just make it your own. So I'm going to put that in now. What these do is they soak up the flavor of whatever you put them in. So this zucchini is actually going to taste like the soup, and it's good for you too. Now I'm going to take the time always to taste my concoction. Take a little bit out on a spoon and blow it. To see if it has enough salt and pepper. It's like right on the edge. I'm going to leave it up to the people at the table. They might want to add more salt to it. I think it's okay, to tell you the truth. But put a salt shaker on your table and let them be the judge. I'm going to put the lid back on. We're going to go another 10 minutes, and then we're going to see if our potatoes are done down in there. And I'll be back. Okay, first of all, we got to check to make sure that our vegetables are done. I cut the potatoes pretty small, so I'm pretty sure that they're done. Let me grab a hold of one. Stick a fork in it and make sure that they're cooked all the way through. Yeah, they seem to be. And they're holding their shape because I didn't use a russet potato. I used the thin-skinned white potato. I'm also going to check my zucchini. It could use a couple more minutes. So what I'm going to do at the end here, and this is just because I learned this a long time ago, is I'm going to add some more cilantro for the freshness of it, and also some lime juice that brings out the flavor of it. Sort of like you could add Worcestershire sauce, it would do the same thing, or any kind of vinegar at the end. It brings out the taste for your palate. So I'm going to stir this up, put the lid back on, and give it a few more minutes for that zucchini to finish cooking, and I'll be back. Okay, now we can move. Okay, trick-or-treating is almost over. The kids are on their way here. They're going to have a comforting, warm pot of soup to warm up on from the cold weather outside. And I hope you have a happy Halloween. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to my channel. My goal is not only kitchen tips, but to teach you how to convert regular recipes to gluten-free, dairy-free. So that is my goal, and I hope you join me on my travels. I've got the soup here. I'm going to ladle it out into a bowl. Smells like vegetable soup. Like I said, you can use your own judgment on what vegetables you like. I mean, I know certain people don't like certain vegetables. Well, don't put them in. My recommendations are my recommendations. So then I had made some rice in my handy dandy rice cooker. So I'm going to put that on the top at the end, because we like to have that. And I would taste it. I think I can. Want to make sure that I put some lime on the top. Let me get a spoon. There we go. Let me taste it for you. Try to get some of the meat, one of those meatballs. It's going to be very hot. So I need to let it cool down a little bit. Please support your local businesses. They're struggling right now. Nobody could find employees. Absolutely delicious. I'll see you next time. Bye.